All right, ladies and gentlemen, coming live from our Joburg office. Good morning and welcome back to the opening bell with myself, Tshepo and Ashley. And this is brought to you by TD Markets and TD Markets Academy every Mondays to Fridays at 9, streaming live on YouTube. Good morning, good morning. I hope you guys had a good weekend. In Joburg right now, it is raining. It's been raining since the early hours of this morning, but I hope wherever you are warm. All right. So, guys, let's get right into it. Let's get right into it. We're going to start with the update of the war. All right. We're going to start with the update of the war. Definitely, it's a very wet Monday. It's a very wet Monday, right? All right. So let's start with the updates of the war. Interesting was what's happening on the war, opportunities we are seeing on the markets, right? So just to take you guys back just a little bit. Now, last week, the U.S. announced that they've had an agreement with Iran on a 2-week ceasefire, right? 2-week ceasefire. And now over the weekend, there were negotiations that took place. I believe it was in Pakistan, all right? Or Pakistan was the mediator of the negotiation. So the U.S. and Iran had negotiations that reportedly took over 20 hours. So they were locked in these negotiations for 21 hours, right? And obviously they were, they were talking about obviously a ceasefire and it was peace talks. Now, these negotiations, these peace talks collapsed without any agreement or without an agreement in place, all right? So there was no agreement and the negotiations collapsed. Now, the U.S. demanded a long-term commitment from Iran to abandon all nuclear weapons or all nuclear weapon ambitions, right, including enrichment capabilities. And Iran refused, accusing the U.S. of making, in inverted commas, excessive demands and unlawful demands, right? And all they are saying is that, hey, look, our program is for peaceful purposes, right? The program that we have as Iran is for peaceful purposes. Now, the U.S. wants Iran to abandon that program, all right? So during those 24 hours, not 24 hours, but 21 hours, there were other issues that were discussed, like the security and the navigation of the Strait of Hormuz or in the Strait of Hormuz, sanctions relief as well. So the U.S. are saying that this is, these negotiations and what they presented was its best and final offer. That's what we got, its best and final offer. Despite that being the case, there was no agreement that was reached. And Iran blamed the U.S. for the breakdown in negotiations, citing lack of trust. They say at the moment, the U.S. cannot be trusted. And looking at its past actions and behavior, it cannot be trusted. So what Iran said there, other nations and countries and other leaders are looking at how Iran is navigating this war. I mean, we know that the U.S. is bigger than Iran in other, it's bigger than Iran. And I'm thinking to myself that other leaders are just watching Iran carefully and how they're navigating. Because like I said to you guys in the past couple of sessions, that Iran is in control of this war, is in charge of this war. They are just sitting back and watching the U.S. just doing all of these things. I mean, we never heard that Iran approached the U.S. looking to negotiate a peace deal, things like that. So now, as a result, with all that's been happening, the peace talk collapsing, no deal has been agreed, and Iran saying this. Now, the U.S. have announced that they will begin the process of blockading all ships trying to enter and leave the Strait of Hormuz, which is interesting because Iran is blocking the Strait of Hormuz. Now, how can the U.S. now also begin the process of blockading the ships? It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense, all right? So this is what happened over the past the weekend. So if you take a look at the charts right now, if you look at gold right now, all right, there's a huge opportunity on gold. Gold opened with a gap. right? And for the past, yeah, gold opened with a gap, and for the past 9 hours, it has been pushing towards the upside. Since the market opened at 12 or at 1, whatever, for the past 9 hours, gold has been pushing towards the upside. And if we really look at the structure, if you really look at the structure has just been bullish. The structure hasn't changed. We are not seeing signs of a change of structure at the moment, right? And I always tell our clients that if something is happening around the world and it's confusing, you can't make sense of it, you are struggling to understand what's happening, you are struggling to understand how gold could be affected, how oil could be affected, how the stocks could be affected, just go to your charts and look at the structure, right? Leave the news for now. Leave the news for now, because fundamentals is something that takes time, that you will take time to understand, right? It's not something that you will understand at one go. It takes a bit of time. So leave the news, leave what's happening, look at how the price is reacting, because whatever we see on the charts is already priced in. So this movement, it is not a random movement. It is not a false move. No, it is what price is doing in real time. So look at the structure and go with the structure. So what we're seeing on gold right now, we're anticipating gold to continue pushing up, right? First intraday levels for gold to head back to 4793. That is our target, 4793, right? To push back there. If it breaks that 4793, right? I mean, we do have resistance there. You guys can see I've got this line drawn, this zone drawn, to indicate that resistance. If gold breaks, which we anticipate it will break, if gold breaks, then there's a high probability that it will be attracted to 5,000, right? 5,000 will attract the market. So that 5,000 per ounce will attract the market. So this is what we're trying to see if it will happen. But intraday short-term, right, movements, we're anticipating gold to go back to 4790. Now, obviously, you will get, on the lower time frames, you will get instances where price will correct. You see how this correction would have been a nice opportunity, right? I was not, this happened at around 6:30, 7 in the morning, but this would have been a nice flag for a long, right? Would have been a nice flag for a long. So yeah, so we're keeping a very close eye on what's going to happen there. But gold is still bullish, right? Despite what's happening, this makes it worse even, right? The latest update, activity, whatever, it makes things worse on gold, right? It makes things worse on gold. So we're anticipating gold to push up now, right? We're anticipating gold to push up. You look at oil, you look at UK oil, which gave us a gap, which opened with a gap, right? It opened with a gap, pushing towards the upside. So this is giving us an idea that oil is expected to push towards the upside, or we can anticipate oil to push towards the upside. Now, obviously, we do have this gap, right? I don't see oil fully closing this gap unless something changes throughout the week, right? Unless something changes throughout the week. But I don't see oil fully closing this gap. However, what we see is a continuation towards the upside. So it could attempt to close this gap and trying to tap this zone, but from there we're anticipating momentum to still push towards the upside. Remember, we do have this gap as well. So it seems like it might try to close this gap instead of this one, right? So there is obviously a correction that is forming at the moment. There is a correction that's forming at the moment. It might try or attempt to go back down to the structure before we continue pushing up. Whatever the case is, we're anticipating price to make its way towards the upside. All right. So that's basically what we are looking at this morning, oil as well as gold. All right. So keep an eye on these latest developments, guys, because anything could change, right? We saw last week that along the week, things did change. So anything could change. All right. Anything could change. Yeah, that's basically how we have the same thought process, the same thought process. All right, and last but not least, if you look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin went down in value. Right, Bitcoin went down in value. Let me just open the Bitcoin chart here. It went down in value. In terms of the structure we see on Bitcoin, nothing has changed since the last update. All right, it went down in value. I'm gonna go to the 4 hour. Let me look at the, yeah. Let's start with the. There we go. So it pushed down in value. Obviously, this is Sunday's candle and this is today's candle. It went down in value as a result of obviously what happened, the collapsed in the negotiations, all of that. But you will notice that the market was approaching this structure. So without the peace talks, without what happened this past weekend, there was a possibility, since the market was approaching this structure, there was a possibility that we could see a drop in price. There was a possibility we could see a drop in price, all right? So what do you anticipate at the moment? To keep it very simple, gold is trading, not gold, sorry, Bitcoin is trading within the structure now. We could see that there's been lows that are forming here, and then there are highs that are forming here. So we can say it's a little bit trapped inside the zone. It has not been moving up consistently or going down consistently, especially from the weekly and the daily time frame. So it is still stuck. It is still stuck inside this structure. However, there is a possibility that it could visit this high again. So if it breaks that resistance there's a possibility it could visit this high again. But as it is right now, we are looking at intraday levels, right? Where first things first, it is on this low. It is on this low. It is approaching this low here. Let me just go back to the daily. Let's see. Yeah, so I would look at the structure here, right? There is a nice resistance which turned into support. I would look at the structure and any movement towards the upside, I would anticipate gold, Bitcoin to first come back down, right? And any levels or any targets, this would be one of the targets I would look at. Here, one of the targets I would look at on Bitcoin, all right? So it is bearish at the moment. And personally, I would look at this target and then we'll see what's going to happen after that, right? But you see this resistance. If it changes, right? If it changes, it could go back to that resistance. But I anticipate Bitcoin to push a little bit more towards the downside and go back to the structure. So these are the effects. These are the results of what happened the past weekend, all right? So keep an eye on it. This morning we've got gold, we've got oil, we've got Bitcoin. Let's see what's going to happen throughout the week. It is a clean week. It is a quiet week in terms of indicators this week. So the technicals should dominate this, all right? So ladies and gentlemen, that's it from my side. Euro JPY went to the target we spoke about. Remember, remember we said Euro JPY is going up to that high there. We said Euro JPY is going up to this high. So that's what happened. It went up to this high. You see that? So Euro JPY, we never changed this analysis. We spoke about it in the trading room, right? The past trading rooms. We spoke about it even last week. We said this is bullish. It's going back to that high. So where it is right now, the setup is done. You see how it is? The setup is done. So the structure is still bullish though. There's a higher probability that it could continue pushing up. But at the moment, if it breaks this top, to us, it will be in no man's land, right? It will be no man's land. So this was a good setup because we knew where Euro JP was going. But if it breaks this zone, it will be trading in no man's land where personally I wouldn't look at it, right? I think there are other opportunities. But yeah, this is what happened. It went back to that high. The setup is done. So that is what we have been talking about. All right. So guys, we will talk about these. We will have a look at some analysis on tomorrow's trading room. So be on the lookout for tomorrow's trading room. We will do full analysis and yeah, we'll take it from there. All right. So that's it this morning. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let's see what's going to happen. Have a look at these setups and we'll continue. Cheers, guys. Have a good one. And remember, if you want to open up an account, the details are on the screen right now. And yeah, we will then catch you guys on the flip side. Cheers, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.